Right. Welcome to the Chicago Football Connection podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Letizia. You can follow me on Twitter at Stephen Letizia. Also, make sure to follow the CFC account at CFC Bears. I spend most of my time there now. I should probably stop plugging my personal email or personal Twitter account. But happy to be doing another podcast. I really enjoyed the last one I did with Tom, and the one I did on my own. So I'm going to be kind of plugging the podcast a lot these next couple weeks, but I'm still going to be writing articles as well. Thanks everyone for joining, watching, either whether you're doing it live or watching the next day or anything. I finally figured out how to do a live podcast. I tried to do that last week and failed miserably. So bear with me. I'm a washed up 31-year-old who's bad with technology. But I'm glad I was able to finally figure it out. Today, I'll be doing a couple of things. One, I'm going to be raffling off. I'm going to be announcing the winner of the signed Mike Ditka jersey. So I did do a drawing earlier today and have a winner. And I'm going to wait to announce that to the very end, so you have to watch the whole thing to get there. Also, going to be talking about the NFL draft, obviously. We had the NFL draft last weekend. A lot of different thoughts. I've been spending the last 3, 4, however many days it is, I lost track of time, watching as many games as I can of these prospects. I think I have a good understanding of the Bears draft class at this point. Tomorrow I'll be doing a podcast with Tom Cavanaugh. He'll be coming on and we'll be discussing everyone that the Bears drafted. Today I'm going to do just a prospect spotlight, you could call it, on Velus Jones. Velus Jones. So the reason I chose Velus Jones for the first podcast breakdown, is because one, the Bears obviously needed a wide receiver. Everyone was kind of just waiting to see who they would draft in this class to be their wide receiver, maybe even multiple wide receivers. Velus Jones was obviously the only wide receiver they drafted. And two, he's obviously a very polarizing draft pick. A lot of people didn't like it, myself included, when it first happened. I was not a big fan of the pick. I wanted that, number one wide receiver that can really, make a huge difference for the Bears. They need that number one go-to guy, and Velus Jones isn't that. And I think even Velus Jones's strongest people in his corner will admit that he's not that. But I will say I did come away more impressed with him on my rewatch than I was when I watched him pre-draft. And that's not just, my Bears navy and orange colored glasses, because there were other players that I liked pre-draft watch and then didn't like them as much. And maybe we can get into that a little bit later on. But I did come away thinking that I guess the way I should say this is, when I watched him again for the second time, I was watching it and trying to understand just why the Bears liked him so much and why the Bears chose this guy over the players that I liked more, like Jalen Tolbert was available when they took Velus Jones, Calvin Austin. Guys like that were available that I would have rather had. So why did they like him more than those guys? What did he do differently that those guys didn't do, and why did he fit in the Bears scheme? And I think I have an answer. So again, I do think he is he was kind of used a lot on screens at Tennessee. I think that was more a result of the scheme. I don't think that. Yeah, it was more a result of the scheme. He can run routes better than I think people think he can. He can stretch the field vertically better than people think he can. But they were just so reliant on his run after the catch ability, where he really thrives, that they needed to throw a million screens to him just to kind of get their offense going. So I think he can be more than what he was at Tennessee. Obviously, he's on the older side. I still have, some concerns about that, but at the same time, he's 25. Who cares? He'll be 24, 29 when he's a free agent. That's not a big deal. You can sign him to 2 contracts, even if you have him for 7, 8 years. That's perfectly fine. So I'm not as concerned with his age anymore. He did start at USC. For people who don't know, he spent 4 years at USC. He actually caught passes from Sam Darnold, which is crazy to say because Sam Darnold feels like he's been in the league forever. But he spent 4 years there. He actually tried to transfer early out of USC, earlier than that, but because I believe his grandfather had a stroke and he wanted to transfer closer to home, and NCAA wouldn't let him. He used the COVID opportunity to transfer for 2 years to Tennessee, where he really made a name for himself, especially this last year. Obviously, he provides a lot of special teams value. That's something that's basically like his floor. He's gonna be a great special teams player. He's gonna be a great returner, SEC special teams player of the year, something like that. So he brings that ability. When I was watching him, I was trying to kind of think of who he reminded me of. Was the first thing I did. It's usually what I do when I watch players, because it helps me understand what his role is going to be in the pros and how he can transition to the pros. So the first, obviously people said Debo. He's not Debo Samuel, but I say he's not Debo Samuel at all. It's not a fair comparison to make to any incoming rookie. I will say that Debo Samuel changed how teams view wide receivers, I think, in terms of their run after the catch ability. And if Debo Samuel weren't as successful as he was the last few years with the 49ers, Velus Jones wouldn't have been the 71st pick in the draft. So he definitely has Debo Samuel to thank. They're going to ask him to do some of the same things that Debo Samuel does, but he's just not as good as Debo Samuel. So if that makes sense. So I tried to think of someone who kind of is similar to Debo Samuel, but obviously not as good. And I landed on Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Devin Duvernay. And I liked Devin Duvernay a few years ago when he was coming out of Texas. He was one of my favorite players. He was much more productive at Texas in terms of stats. I think he had like over 100 receptions one year. But he kind of fits the bill in terms of a guy who's really a really good special teamer. He was an all-pro returner for Baltimore. A guy they use on like jet sweeps and touch passes and screens and end arounds and stuff like that. So they kind of get creative on how they use him. And I think that's what the Bears are going to have to do with Velus Jones as well. So as you can see, they're pretty similar size. Velus Jones is actually a little bit bigger. Although Devin Duvernay right now is listed at around like 210, so he obviously has bulked up since he's been in the pros, and I think Velus Jones can probably do the same thing. So he's a little bit bigger right now than Duvernay was when coming out. A little bit faster as well, but they don't both have that 4.3 speed, and no one's going to accuse Devin Duvernay of being slow. So, but the thing I like about Velus Jones is that sets them apart on the speed-wise is that 1.46 10-yard split. He gets up to his top speed very quickly, where Duvernay is more of a build-up. So that's a huge difference there. The agilities, I will say, I mean, Duvernay obviously a little bit more better change of direction. I will say that I was really surprised after watching all of these games of Velus Jones how poorly he did in the shuttle and three cone. I do think he's more of a linear athlete, but I didn't think he was a poor change of direction guy. Definitely not that bad. So maybe I don't know what was going on that day when he did that, but I do think this is a really good comparison. Like I said, they use the way they use Duvernay is a lot of screens and touch passes and stuff like that. And I think Velus Jones getting creative with him and just getting the ball in his hands in open space and letting his run after catch ability kind of take over. That's really what they're going to want to do with him. I have a couple of examples that later on we can get into, but I do have some other things I just want to talk about first. This is a graph that I put together for when me and Tom did the wide receiver podcast, and it puts the PFF grade versus man coverage on the vertical axis. So that's PFF grade versus man. So not their total PFF grade, but their grade versus man coverage. And then on the horizontal axis is the yards per route run. So you want to be in the top right-hand quadrant, and Velus Jones is up there. Just barely, but he is in there. Comparable to players like David Bell and John Mechie, Calvin Austin, Dontae Drummond. So some guys that people really liked. Velus Jones is where you want a player to be, so that's good. You obviously don't want to be in this lower left-hand corner where Justin Ross and Bo Melton were. And Eric Ozukama, some guys that people really liked, including me. I like Bo Melton a lot. So it was good to see Velus Jones in that top right-hand corner. It shows that he has a good yards per route run. He's also getting open versus man coverage based on his PFF grade. So that was good to see him up there. This other picture that I have, this is coming from PFF as well. I believe Brad Spielberger tweeted this out. If you don't follow Brad on on Twitter. You should. He's a big Bears fan, PFF guy at PFF_Brad. One of the best Bears follows out there, so I definitely recommend following him. But he tweeted this out for all of the Bears draft picks, and I thought it was just really interesting. So I just wanted to kind of talk through this a little bit. So it gives you the percentile for each kind of section and stat for the prospect. So for Velus Jones, his receiving grade for PFF was in the 41st percentile. It's obviously not good. It's below average. But his receiving grade versus single coverage was a little bit better in the 51st percentile. So he's at least average over single coverage, maybe even slightly above. The receiving grade versus zone coverage, underneath coverage, obviously 33rd percentile. That's not good. It's kind of what it definitely, seeing that when watching his games, that makes complete sense. He's not a contested catch receiver. He struggles with, when there's a cornerback in the area. And if there's like a linebacker in zone, he's kind of sometimes be a little afraid going over the middle. So if there's a linebacker waiting in zone, or if there's a safety playing a robber position in zone, he might let up a little bit. So his receiving grade in zone coverage against zone coverage kind of makes sense. It's something he has to improve on. But it's not something that I'm too concerned about, especially given the next two sets of numbers. So the separation percentage, so the amount of separation that he created compared to every other wide receiver prospect. I don't know exactly what the scope of these numbers are, how far back it goes, but it was 100th percentile, which means he's the best to ever do it. So that's obviously very impressive. And his separation percentage for single coverage, 99th percentile, very, very good. Tennessee's offense, this is obviously just for 2021 too, I should mention, but Tennessee's offense, they ran a lot of screens, as I mentioned, to Jones. They have a lot of like rub concepts to kind of scheme guys open. So I'm not sure how much those separation percentages are skewed. I haven't seen the raw data behind it, but it's obviously very impressive. Even if it is skewed a little bit, he obviously has the ability to separate versus man coverage, and separate against all coverages. So that was very intriguing to see, and that when I saw that made me really want to kind of dig deep down and further into his tape and see kind of, maybe I missed the first time around and what maybe we all missed the first time around. But the reason you're drafting a guy like Velus Jones is the next set of percentiles there. So you have the yards per route run for 2021, 79th percentile. So obviously that's very good. ADOT stands for average depth of target, 7th percentile. So that's obviously very low. Again, he's catching a lot of screen passes behind the line of scrimmage. He's catching a lot of, balls, within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So that completely makes sense. But the fact that he has a 7th percentile average depth of target and a 79th percentile yards per route run is very good, because that obviously leads you to the last section, yards after catch per reception, 91st percentile. So if you're going to have the 7th percentile average depth of target, you better be really good against after the catch, and Velus Jones definitely is that. So that's, again, why I said he's not Deebo Samuel, but Deebo Samuel influenced this draft pick, because in the West Coast offense that the 49ers run and that the Bears will be running, and that the Packers run, you need guys who can create after the catch. You want to get the ball into your playmakers' hands as quickly as possible and let them do what they do best. And there probably wasn't anyone in this draft better at that, at least outside the first round, better than Velus Jones. And we also, I have this thing, and I really apologize. Someone tweeted this out, but I don't remember who it was, so I'm really sorry for not giving the person credit for this who deserves it. But this is the after-catch production of the 2022 NFL Draft wide receivers. This kind of just reiterates what we just saw. The yards after catch per reception, 8.32 yards. That was third in the draft class behind Treylon Burks and Jamison Williams, 2 first-round draft picks. Yards after contact per reception was second in the draft class behind Eric Ezukanma. And then the missed tackle force per reception was 4th behind David Bell, Sky Moore, and Garrett Wilson. So very highly regarded prospects. So when you average all these out, he was the best after-catch production receiver in this draft class. So obviously, that's what you're getting with Velus Jones. When you ask, what can this guy do for us? That's what he can do for you. That's what he's going to be doing, as soon as he steps the foot in training camp. He should be catching screens and catching short passes and just trying to get as many yards as possible. Obviously, I have this video here. He obviously was able to do it in the SEC. Should be able to do it in the pros as well. He wasn't doing this against scrubs. He was doing this against SEC competition. So that should translate right away. He's going to be a great kick returner right away. He needs to work on a few things. He's not a great route runner, but I think he's a better route runner than what at least I thought initially, and I would think that he's getting credit for right now on Bears Twitter and Bears and analysts. Again, he did run a lot of screens, but he didn't only run screens. So I put together this clip. These are all his receptions that were, not all of his receptions, but a sampling of his receptions down the field. So this is a route that he ran a lot. It's from the slot, a little slot fade. So he's going to basically just all speed. He does get contacted there. The way he fought through contact there is really good. He can beat press. He's not afraid. He doesn't shy away from contact in his route. So that's really good. That was also a nice example of his tracking ability, which isn't, I wouldn't say his strong point, but he did do it here very well. Tracking the ball over his shoulder. It was a little bit underthrown, but he was able to come down with it. This is more of a broken coverage, I believe, but he does set up the cornerback pretty well. So he's in the slot at the top of the screen here. You can see, kind of sets that corner up, keeps him on his toes, on his heels, before breaking over the middle and catching the pass. Now, I think that safety was supposed to be a little bit deeper, so that's a little bit of a broken coverage, but there are other examples as well. This is just a straight deep ball. He just uses his speed. Again, he ran a 4.31 speed at the combine. That is not a lie. When you watch him, he's very clearly very fast. So that was just a straight go route. This is another one of those slot fades. Again, just using his speed. Now, this one has been tweeted out a lot, and it is, obviously impressive play. He scores a touchdown on this, but he does slow down when the ball's in the air and kind of bobbles the ball just a little bit. And that's kind of what shows up a lot. He has that 4.31 speed. When he has the ball in his hand, he has 4.31 speed. When he's running routes, he's got 4.45 speed. So that's the difference there. But once he gets the ball in his hands, you can see how he pulls away from that corner. This is another really good route. He's in the slot here. You'll see that he kind of does a jab step in to get the corner to bite, and then blows past him up the seam, gets the ball, and then I really like how the balance he shows here. He takes kind of a big hit from the safety, almost scores a touchdown. I think he was rolled down to the one, so I really like that play too. This is an example against press coverage, little back shoulder pass, but he does play really well against press coverage. That's not something that I'm worried about at all with him, so I do think he can play on the outside as well as the slot. So I do think he has that kind of flexibility to play multiple positions. I forget what this one is. Oh, this is just a post over the middle. Shows good hands, good right after catch. And then this is a slant. And then again, he shows off that run after catch ability. So while he did catch a lot of screen passes in college, he's not only a screen receiver. He can get open in a variety of different ways. And he proved that again at the Senior Bowl. When he went to the Senior Bowl, this first one, back that up. This is again why I think he could play against press coverage and play that X receiver role. You don't need to be 6'3" to be an X receiver. I talked about this on the last wide receiver podcast. People always say that, oh, we need that 6'3" wide receiver. No, you need your X receiver to be able to beat press and threaten deep, and this play shows that extremely well. So this is Mario Goodrich, a very good corner from Clemson. He was drafted, I forget where he was drafted, but he was drafted this past weekend. Beats press and then is just way faster than the guy. Terrible ball, way underthrown, but was able to adjust to catch it. This is just an example of his route running. So I don't remember who this is against, but you can see how he gets his whole body into his routes. Using head fakes, using subtle steps to get cornerbacks leaning. It was very effective at the Senior Bowl. He was one of the better receivers at the Senior Bowl. This is one of my favorite routes. This is against Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State, who, smaller school, but he was drafted. You can see the head fake there and, just blew past him. This particular route is actually in the Senior Bowl game itself. This is against Kobe Bryant, the Cincinnati corner, not the former LA Laker. But This is a great route for him. You can see how he uses the head fake to get him off balance. Little bit of a push off just to create a little separation. That's okay. That's not getting called in the pros. Gets the catch. Really good route there. This is against Tariq Woolen, who's 6'4", and I believe ran a 4.340. Jones just blew right past him. This is against Alontae Taylor, who was the 49th pick in the draft, his actual teammate at Tennessee. Again, you can see those head fakes, and I like the way he adjusts this poorly thrown ball and gets open late in his route, and the way he tracks it. So I like that route as well. And then this last one is a pretty dirty, deep route again. He's gonna fake the comeback and then just accelerate out of his cuts to go deep, and then again just a terrible throw by the quarterback there as well. So he proved it in the SEC. He wasn't asked to do it a lot, but he can do it. So it wasn't an issue of him not being able to do it. It was an issue of them being so reliant on his run after the catch ability, his screen ability, the ability to create off of screens, that they did that a lot more than send him deep or send him over the middle. I know a lot of people, because you can see on the bottom there, 62 receptions, 800 yards, his final season, 6th season in college. So it is a little underwhelming to see those numbers from a 25-year-old or 24-year-old in college. But they weren't. It wasn't all his fault. He was open a lot more than what his stats show, I should say. His quarterback, Hendon Hooker, had some good stats this year, but he also missed a lot of throws. And Velus Jones' stats could have been much better than what they were. So I put together just a kind of a clip to show you. I mean, this is just a screen that is thrown way over his head. Can't really do anything, blame Jones on that. He's wide open. This should be a touchdown all day, and the ball sails out of bounds. It's not even close. So that's another touchdown that's taken away from him. This is another route. He's down here at the bottom of the screen. Good route, and the ball is just thrown too far out in front of him. This was happening all the time, and it wasn't just Velus Jones either. It was the other wide receivers too. This is another one where, look, he has 2 steps on his guy. He's out there deep on a deep pass. He's got 2 steps on him, and the ball is just unfortunately way underthrown to the wrong shoulder. It should be in the end zone. Let him just come underneath the ball and catch it. This is just an out route that's overthrown. So you can see, I mean, I'm kind of being a dead horse at this point, but you could just see there were opportunities for him to have much bigger stats. Like that one was just out of his reach, but an overthrow on a pass that should have been a touchdown. So there were just a lot of opportunities for him to put up better stats, and with better quarterback play, he would have, made those receptions and scored those touchdowns. Again, he's not perfect. There are some things he needs to work on. This is kind of an example of a bad quarterback play and also something he needs to work on. So I wanted to isolate it as its own thing. But so he's over here. He's on the right-hand side in the slide. You can't see him right now, but he'll come into the screen a little bit. The defense is playing cover 3. So the safety at the top of the screen is going to drop back into the middle of the field. The safety on the right is going to drop down into the closer to the line of scrimmage. So they're playing a cover 3, and Jones, who is, again, right on the right side of the screen, he's going to be running a post. And what he does is, since they're running a cover 3, if he runs a post, full go, he's just going to run right into that safety at the top. So what he does is he kind of sits in the zone, which is what you're supposed to do, against a cover 3. You're supposed to flatten it out and go up the field, or, kind of just find the hole in the zone and sit there. Now, the quarterback throws it like he isn't going to sit in the zone, kind of leads him right into the wide receiver. So the ball should have come out earlier to Jones there. Should have been an easy completion. On the other hand, though, Jones has to do a much better job of feeding that ball. He kind of makes a little bit of a business decision there to let that ball go by on little alligator arms. So he can definitely put more effort into that. And that showed up a couple times when he was going over the middle. A couple times when he had, I actually got another one lined up. It's kind of a quick one, but you could see he just lets the cornerback into his body and lets him make a play on the ball. He really should be boxing out that guy a little bit more. It's a short clip, unfortunately, you can't really see it, but he's 205 pounds. He shouldn't be. He should be able to box out that corner and kind of make a contested catch. So that's something he really needs to work on in the pros. So I compared him earlier. I compared him to Devin Duvernay, and I do think that's from a physical standpoint a pretty good comparison. I think it's pretty spot on if I pat myself on the back a little bit. Unfortunately, the Ravens run an offense that's drastically different than what the Bears are going to be running. So I didn't want to kind of use clips of Duvernay to kind of show what Jones can do in the offense. So I was kind of thinking of who Jones could kind of emulate himself off of, and I was thinking about um, quarterback friendly offenses because we know they keep reiterating that this is going to be a very quarterback friendly offense um, for Justin Fields. And I thought about the 2020 Rams. So when the Rams had Jared Goff before trading for Matt Stafford, that was probably one of the most quarterback friendly offenses ever. They really tried to hide Jared Goff and how bad he was. Um, so I thought about how they use, and I want to just reiterate that this is not a comparison. I'm not comparing these two players. I'm saying that the Bears could choose to use Velus Jones in the similar way that the Rams used Robert Woods in 2020. So again, not a comparison. I'm not comparing Velus Jones to Robert Woods. I'm just saying the way that Robert Woods was used in 2020 is a way that I think they can get Velus Jones involved in the offense. Now, Robert Woods is 2020. He had over 100 receptions for 1,000 yards, so he had about 10 yards per reception. Jones isn't going to come close to those numbers, but he did have an average depth of target of 6.7 yards, which is very short. That was the lowest of his career. If you pull up his charts, kind of where he was catching the ball, you can see a majority of his receptions and targets were coming either behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards. 91 of his 135 targets were less than 9 yards. That's 67%. That's 2/3 of his targets. So I think that's how he's going to be used. He also had 24 rushing attempts this year. And again, I do think the Bears will want to get Velus Jones involved in the running game. So that's where this I don't want to use the word comparison, but that's where this idea came from, to kind of see how the Rams used Robert Woods in their offense and see if that's something Velus Jones can do as well. So I have this clip. So this is the Rams did this a lot in 2020. This is again with Jared Goff as the wide receiver, or as the quarterback. But the Rams did this a lot. They have ace trips to the right. So a triple formation. The Robert Woods on the outside, Cooper Kupp on the line of scrimmage, and then the tight end on in line there. The trips, and they're gonna have Robert Woods come down and block this defensive end with the tight end. So they're gonna double team the defensive end on this play. So I do think that Velus Jones can be used in a similar way. So this is just really a decoy. This is just setting up a different play for later on in the game. So they dump the ball to the flat there for the running back, whatever. So later in the game, they come out in that same formation. You can't really tell because of the diagram, but it's trips to the right, ace trips to the right. And what they're going to do is they're going to have Robert Woods fake block and then sneak out into the flat for an easy reception and yards after the catch opportunity. So you can see fake block there. They're going to run the play action boot. Justin Fields is going to dump the ball up to Velus Jones, and then he has all this room to use his run after catch ability to make just make some plays. Get the ball in your playmakers' hands and let them make plays. Tennessee didn't always do this with Jones, but they did do it a few times. So this is a similar formation, similar idea that Tennessee did. The difference here is Robert Woods was on the outside. Velus Jones is actually on the line of scrimmage where Cooper Kupp was, but it's the same general idea. What they're going to have Velus Jones do here is block that the corner or linebacker or safety, who's ever on him, and then sneak out into the flat and then use his speed to finish the play. So you see, it's a very similar concept that Tennessee did, and I think that this is a way that the Bears could use Velus Jones to as a decoy with that blocking ability. He is bigger, he's 6 foot, 205 pounds. That's a lot bigger than Robert Woods is. So you just get the ball in the flat here and then just let him run. Use his 4.3 speed, get to the outside, and score a touchdown. So I do think that's a way that they could utilize him. You're gonna have to. He is a better route runner than he's given credit for. I'll give him that. But you're really gonna want to scheme him touches, and that's a way that they can do that. Using as a decoy in those blockings, and let him pass block a few times. Let him run block from inline tight end, something like that. He's a bigger guy. He can do it. Again, bigger than Robert Woods. He's also a very good blocker. This is one of my favorite. Oops, that's the wrong one. This is one of my favorite plays. I forget who tweeted this. But this is from his USC days. Obviously, he's actually the kick returner in the end zone here. He's not going to get the ball though. The up man's going to steal it from him. So then Velus Jones is going to turn into a blocker, and this is honestly one of my favorite plays. Very good blocker, very physical. So I think using him in that kind of role that the Rams did with Robert Woods a few years ago, kind of use him as a blocker, let him sneak out into the flat, get him an easy reception, just let him use his yards after catch ability and speed and the ability to make people miss. Maybe it'll turn into a big play. So that's how you're going to have to use him, especially early on. Maybe he develops into a more precise route runner and could be better. But right now, I just want to take advantage of that 4-3 speed. Give him the ball, let him make plays. Rams also used Robert Woods on these jet sweeps. So this is just a generic jet sweep. They did this a lot with him. Everyone knows what a jet sweep is at this point. You send the wide receiver in motion, hike the ball, turn around, hand it off to the wide receiver who's coming across the formation. So they did that a lot. I expect the Bears to do that a lot with Jones as well. The nice thing you can do with that is you can build off of those jet sweeps. Getting those people in motion every snap confuses the defense. So what the Rams did with Robert Woods is they would do that same formation and they would send him in motion again, have the ball just like they did the last time, except now you're not going to hand it off, and what you're going to do is you're going to throw him a screen. So then again, you're giving him the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Robert Woods got 10 yards out of that. Robert Woods ran a 4.6. Velus Jones ran a 4.3. He could potentially score on a play like that. So that's how you kind of set up those designed touches for Velus Jones. You don't have to, rely on him beating a corner one-on-one in the NFL, which he might not be able to do right away. But you can scheme him these touches and use that run after catch ability to your advantage. And then what you can do off of that, so it's threefold. So you got the jet sweep, you got the fake jet sweep into a screen, and then the Rams even took it a step further. And then here you have, it's not quite a jet sweep, but you do have the guy in motion. Again, there's a very similar formation than what you're seeing a lot with all these West Coast schemes, is that trips to the right, triple bunch formation up there. So they're going to send Robert Woods in motion. Again, not exactly a fake jet sweep because they hiked the ball a little bit later. But what they're doing is, with those last two plays, they're stretching the field horizontally. They're making you cover from sideline to sideline. They're making the defense cover from sideline to sideline. So what you can do now is, instead of having them run in the flat or run a screen, send them on a wheel route and just send them deep. Use that 4-3 speed to your advantage and hit the defense when they're least expecting it. So that is another way that they can use them on those jet sweeps, misdirections, screens, obviously. They also can do end arounds, which is a little bit different than a jet sweep. But the Rams did that with Robert Woods a lot, end arounds, getting him some rushing attempts. Tennessee did it as well. It was basically the same formation. We're just going the other way. Obviously, he's making that guy miss 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then picking up 10 yards. He ran about 45 yards to pick up those 10 yards. But that's what he can do. He's going to get the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he's going to make plays. So now, I do think he can kind of fill that role. So I did want to look a little bit at the Packers offense as well. So I did watch a lot of Packers YouTube clips and stuff like that. So I did that so you don't have to. It was awful. I hated every second of it. But I do think when Luke Getsky and Matty Eberflus and Ryan Poles talk about a quarterback-friendly offense, they really mean that. Because what I found is the plays that they're running are very QB-friendly, very wide receiver-friendly too. And I think Velus Jones is a perfect fit for what they want to do. When I looked this up, I really thought to myself, okay, I see why the Bears had this guy rated so much higher than maybe I did, or other people on Bears Twitter. I can see why they wanted a guy with this skill set over a guy with maybe a different skill set, like a George Pickens or Christian Watson or Jalen Tolbert, guys like that. I can see why they valued this more than those guys, while also getting those corners and safeties in the first couple rounds. Um, so this first play is from the Packers. It's just a simple mesh concept. None of these next couple plays I'm going to show you are too advanced. They're all pretty simple concepts. But what they're designed to do is just get the receiver open in the flat and allow him to create after the catch. So in this particular play, you have Davante Adams at the top of the screen. He's running a shallow cross over the middle. He's going to be the guy you want to get the ball to. In the slot, you have Allen Lazard, who's going to run a crosser as well. Those two crossers, what they're meant to do is just not only confuse the defense, but kind of set a pick on that corner. So Allen Lazard is going to try and set a pick on this corner so that Davante Adams, who's at the top of the screen, can get open the flat. And this other receiver in the slot is kind of doing the same thing. It's just another person kind of in the way so that you can get this guy open and isolated and get him that yards after the catch. And at the bottom of the screen, you have a receiver. You're just sending him deep. He's not really involved in the play. You're just trying to clear out that zone so you can get the ball to the X receiver, Davante Adams. So again, X receiver at the top of the screen, Davante Adams. That's where you'd want Velus Jones on this play. You want him to get the ball underneath and let him take over. So we play from here. You'll see, watch Allen Lazard because he's going to be the guy who makes this play work. He's running that crosser, and he's going to just barely get in the way of that corner. He just alters his route just enough where they can get the ball to Davante Adams and then let his speed and right after the catch ability make plays. So again, that's where you'd want a Velus Jones kind of player. So you can get that ball in his hands in the flat and just let his 4.3 speed take it to the next level. This next play, it's a very similar concept. So it's not exactly a mesh route, but it's very similar in what they're trying to do. So here you have 11 personnel. You have one running back in the backfield. You have one tight end on the field, although he's split out wide right now at the bottom of the screen. You have 3 wide receivers. Each one of them has a corner directly across them in press coverage, and then you have a safety here at the bottom of the screen on the tight end. This is obviously man coverage. Aaron Rodgers is a pretty smart guy, at least football-wise. So they're going to change the play here. They got they know they have man coverage. They want to get a man beater here. And what they're going to do is they're going to get that trip formation, and they're going to just run this. So it's, again, a similar concept. The outside receiver, I believe it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's just running a shallow cross, the red route. You just want to get him open in the flat over there. The 2 wide receivers next to him are just pushing vertically. Right off the snap as quickly as possible. They want to get upfield because they want to just take those 2 corners that are guarding them and just build traffic. So this cornerback who's covering Marquez Valdes-Scantling can't take a direct route to the flat over there. So you'll see what I mean when they hike the ball. You'll see that. Watch the corner who's on the outside corner covering Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So again, they're going to push vertically. This corner has no chance of getting to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's just a simple pick play. And if you get the ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling there, or in our case, Velus Jones, good things are going to happen because Velus Jones can make plays with the ball in his hand. This one, again, similar concept, nothing too groundbreaking here, but this is how you want to use Velus Jones. You want to help him get open as quickly as possible and get him the ball with no one around him. So again, the defense here is just in a 2 deep shell. You have the 2 outside receivers. Again, they're just running deep. They're really decoys on this play. They're just trying to clear out the zones for the underneath routes. You have Allen Lazard in the slot, who's going to run a little crosser, almost like a slant crosser kind of thing. And then you have the wide receiver, I believe that's a tight end next to him, who's, again, just going to push vertically and just get in the way of this cornerback covering Allen Lazard. So he's not even trying to get open here. All he's trying to do is just get it in the way. And you can see he does a very good job at that. One could call this pass interference. If it was anyone other, if the Bears ran this play, they're calling pass interference 100 times out of 100, but it's the Packers that they let him cheat. And then look, I mean, no one around Allen Lazard. Um, and then I don't know what Allen Lazard's trying to do there, but that obviously was not very successful. The thing about this, though, is when I saw this Allen Lazard play, it just made me appreciate Velus Jones even more because the Packers were running these same concepts that the Bears are going to be running with Velus Jones, with guys who aren't really good run after the catch guys. Now Devontae Adams is obviously a very good run after the catch guy. He's a very good receiver. So I'm not saying that about Devontae Adams, but Allen Lazard, not really a run after the catch guy. He's more of a possession guy, even or a vertical guy sometimes, but he's not a run after the catch guy, as you can see from his feeble attempt to hurdle people. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is a deep threat. He's not a run after the catch guy. But Velus Jones is. So running these exact same plays with Jones opens up the offense even more. All right, last one here. This is another pretty easy concept to understand. This is an RPO. We're very familiar with RPOs. Again, you have the trips formation. Again, that's the formation you're gonna be seeing a lot from Luke Getsky, presumably. So here you have an RPO. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in the box. The safety's pretty close to the line too. They're kind of selling out for the run here. I believe this is like 3rd and 4. And then you've got the trips to the right, and this is going to be an RPO. So they're going to do the outside zone on the RPO. Rodgers sees the linebacker crashing down. He knows he has some numbers on the outside. So he's going to throw the RPO. This is another way you could use Velus Jones. He only needs to get 4 or 5 yards here. This is a play that Marquez Valdez-Scantling gets the first down by getting 4 or 5 yards, but it's also a play where Velus Jones could score a touchdown. Because that's how good he is after the catch. That's where you can use that speed. So, again, I do think I did come away from this experiment liking Velus Jones more. I do see how, with these Packers plays that I was looking at, how they can use him to their advantage. I do see why they valued him more than other receivers. I know we had some questions. I had a question about Velus Jones. I want to make sure I answered it correctly. So, Jake on Twitter at JTR_1994 asked, "What's your ideal rookie season look like for Velus? What's the plan to get him involved in the offense his rookie year?" Hopefully, I answered that for you. That second part for you. Does drafting Velus Jones reveal anything Getsy and the Bears plan to do on offense this year? I think, again, hopefully I answered that as well with those rub routes and getting him open in the flats and maybe even using those how the Rams use Robert Woods on those blocking plays and the jet sweeps and stuff like that. But my ideal rookie season for Velus Jones Jr., that's a tough question. My ideal rookie season is that he produces on special teams. That is going to be where he is going to thrive a lot. I do think he can step in right away and be a great kick returner, great punt returner. He only did punt returns actually this last year at Tennessee, but he averaged like 15 yards per punt. So I do think he's going to be a good punt returner. And I do see them using him on these jet sweeps and these screens and those rub routes to get him open in the flat. So I don't think it's outrageous to have, I don't think he's going to be, a 20 yards per reception guy, but I think he's going to be closer to a 10 yards per reception guy. But I think maybe 50 receptions for 500 yards. 40 receptions for 400 yards. It's not going to be anything crazy. I think this is still a 3rd round pick. We need to keep our expectations in check. I think that not just Bears fans, all sport fans, when the draft comes, they get all excited about these guys, and we have to remember that 3rd round picks usually bust. Most likely are they're more likely to bust than break out into a great player. So if you get any type of value out of a 3rd round draft pick in his rookie year, that's a win. Even if it is only 25 receptions for 300 yards or something like that, and a couple touchdowns. It might not look great on paper, but I think that would be a successful rookie year for Velus Jones. It's all about what he brings to the offense, the threat of the 4-3 speed, the deep threat that he offers, the fact that teams have to say, okay, anytime Velus Jones catches the ball, we have to be prepared for him to make us miss. So we have to game plan against him. I think anytime you have a guy like that, that's a successful season, even if the stats don't maybe back it up. So the worst case scenario, he can't get on the field for whatever reason. He's just a special teams only guy. That would concern me as a 25-year-old rookie if he can't get on the field offensively and is just a special teams guy. At that point, he's probably just a special teams guy for his career, which, is probably not great for a third round pick. But if you get a really good kick returner for a long time, you know, could be worse. And I do think he has that high floor because of his kick return and punt return ability, and just his ability able to catch. You could always use a guy who can turn a 0-yard screen into 4, 5, 6 yards every time. So I do think that would be a successful rookie season for him. There was someone else who asked a question. So not a Velus Jones specific question, but I asked for NFL draft questions, so I'm going to answer. Peter Shaw at JPShaw78 asked the question, you think any of the day 3 O-line selected could be a starting right guard? I do. I'd say that Doug Kramer is as a center only, so I don't think he could be a starting right guard. I did like him. I do think he's a lot, and I'll talk more about him tomorrow. But he's a center only prospect, so it wouldn't be him. I think Zachary Thomas. So when I mentioned earlier that I watched Velus Jones and I came away more impressed, Zachary Thomas was a guy that I came away kind of shaking my head about. I watched him very briefly before the draft, and I was like, okay, this is a guy like development guy. He has something. And then when I watched him more in depth, I kind of like, nah, I don't think this guy has it. He is just, especially not at guard, I would say. I think he was announced as a guard, and I think they're going to try him at guard. But I almost like him better as a tackle because he did not have issues with speed. So that was not his issue. His issue was with power and guys bull rushing him, and that's just going to be exasperated on the inside. So I actually almost like him better as a tackle. Not right away. He can't pass block. His footwork in pass block and needs to be completely reworked. He needs to put on some weight and get bigger and stronger. But I do like him better as a tackle. So that leaves us. The other day 3 guy is Jatire Carter, who I absolutely love, and I think he could be a starting right guard as soon as this year. Maybe not day 1, but I think he can be a very good guard in this league. I also think that Braxton Jones might play a little guard this year, depending on how they feel about Larry Borum, but I could absolutely see Braxton Jones playing right guard. And has the body type for it, and I like him a lot as well. But Jatire Carter is a guy that I think more people need to be talking about. He went to the Senior Bowl and absolutely dominated. He went up against Logan Hall and Perrin Winfrey and Travis Jones and locked him down for the most part, So I do think he's coming from a small school, historically black college university, Southern. But so he did, not great competition he was playing against, but he did dominate that competition. He was one of the best pass blocking guards, pass blocking tackles in the nation because he played tackle in college. I think PFF had him rated as their number 1 pass blocking tackle in all of college football. So I really like him. I was going to say this tomorrow, but I'll pull up a clip of him. I got one. Why not? Look at the wrong one? I look at the wrong guy. Hold on. So these are... A second. So here's Jatire Carter. This is him at the Senior Bowl. So again, that's against Logan Hall. One of the best. Logan Hall was a 2nd-round pick. Probably one of the best interior pass rushing players in this draft, if not the best. And he just shut it down. All 3 things Logan Hall so far. Absolutely no problem. I believe this is the last one against Logan Hall. He's really strong for strength. You can see when he gets his hands on guys, they don't get off. This is against Otito Ogbonia, who was a defensive tackle from UCLA. Obviously, he had faced the counter there, had no problem. And then this is against Perrin Winfrey. Just stones him. So he did this. I have other ones, but I'll save that for tomorrow. I just think he's a guy who can really play in this league, and I think might not be day 1, but he's a guy that I'm excited about. I think that's all the questions. Now we can get to what everyone was waiting for. I am finally giving away the Mike Ditka jersey. I'm sad to see it go. Signed jersey. It's on to the back. There it is. So I did wrap this off. Thank you everyone for sharing the tweet. Thank you everyone for supporting what I'm doing. I really do appreciate everyone's interact with me on Twitter and sharing those tweets and sharing articles and sharing podcasts. So thank you to everyone. But the winner of the signed Mike Ditka jersey is Lance at Best Human Talent. You are the winner of the Mike Ditka jersey. I will be reaching out to you to get your contact information so I can send you this in the mail. Congratulations, everyone else. Sorry you didn't win this time, but I'll be raffling off more stuff in the future. I have other Bears memorabilia that I need to get rid of. I have just too many of it, to be honest. So I'm not gonna promise this, but I do have a Walter Payton signed football. Not gonna promise that. I might end up keeping that because I really like that. But you never know. Maybe I'll raffle that off. Maybe I'll do another raffle. Just like a Bears jersey of your choice or something like that. So I'll be doing more in the future, definitely. So keep following and keep sharing. But I think that's it for the today. Again, I'm gonna be back tomorrow with Tom Cavanaugh. So I actually have a host, so I won't a co-host, so I won't just be talking at you for however long it's been. So I'm really excited about that. Again, we're gonna be going over all of the prospects that the Bears drafted. Really excited about that. So tune in. Make sure to subscribe, share with your friends. Greatly